Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Kentucky Small Business Development Center's Wednesday webinar. While we give everyone just a moment to connect, we'd like to share a little bit about the Kentucky Small Business Development Center, or Kentucky SBDC for short. The Kentucky SBDC has been assisting the Commonwealth small business community for more than 35 years. We have 13 service centers statewide to provide assistance in all 120 counties. Our experienced and knowledgeable staff provides unparalleled consulting and training services that help existing business owners and potential entrepreneurs succeed. So we provide no-cost assistance in areas such as market research, opportunity assessments, and feasibility studies. We help develop your business plan and execute it because it does no good just sitting on the shelf. We help with financial modeling and projections, and we help to also identify pre-venture and growth capital that fits your business needs. To request personal assistance, call 1-888-475-7232. You can email us at info@ksbdc.org, info@ksbdc.org, or you can visit our helpful website during this pandemic at kybizhelp.com. That's kybizhelp.com. In addition, you can connect with us socially via Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. Just search Kentucky SBDC on each of these platforms to connect. The Kentucky SBDC is co-sponsored by the U.S. Small Business Administration and is administered by the University of Kentucky in partnership with regional universities, community colleges, and the private sector. We are part of a national network, America's Small Business Development Centers, which serves the entire U.S. A recording of today's webinar will be emailed to you, so if you have trouble with the audio or need to step away, know that we'll send you the link so you may view it at your leisure. In addition, you can connect with us again at ksbdc.org. Sorry about that. I'm Janet Flaw. I'm with the Louisville Center, and joining us today is David Etkin, our Center Director in Louisville, and Tony Sears, our Assistant Center Director in Louisville. So good afternoon, guys.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Well, today's webinar, Wednesday webinar, I'm really excited because this is something that I've been thinking about a lot, and we've been so lucky to have a couple of folks that I really admire and worked with several times, and they can really provide some great information for you because these last few weeks we've all been focused on one thing: is how do I get to apply for an SBA loan so I can keep my business together? And so everybody's kind of, if you've applied, you've probably applied more than once, and you got that in process. So now is, what do you do after that? You know, how do you go forward from today and embrace the new normal? So I'd like to introduce our guest today. Amy Rudy is the founder and CEO of Impact Sales Systems. Her company helps companies and entrepreneurs increase and double sales sometimes using proven sales processes, sales tools, and prospecting plans. And also, Louis Rudy is the president and founder of Rudy and Associates. And, he works with business owners and their teams to build strong, intentional business growth. And he has the unique talent of turning year-over-year profits into double-digit profit improvement. He's worked with tons of big companies all over the United States and internationally. So I'm really excited to have these two here with us today, and this is going to be really great. So please, I hope you'll enjoy it as much as I do. So, Amy?
Great. Thanks, David. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for coming. Let me see if I think I shared my screen properly here. The one thing is, David, I wanted to thank you and your team and GLI and SBDC of Kentucky. You all pulled together some amazing programming in the most peculiar of times. So let's see where, start here. Great, very good. First of all, like you, we are so thankful for our frontline healthcare and essential workers. So if you are, or you have people in your family that are doing that, thank you so much. Louis and I are pleased to do what we can today to share what we know. Our goal today is to bring several action-driven takeaways for you to put to work right now in your business. For those of you who know me, there's a few maybe, you know that I believe in an edutainment style of learning, but you also know I like a crowd. So I'll try to be virtually brilliant, or if not, at least virtually helpful today. Louis is the biggest brain I know. He's a no-nonsense leader who 34 years ago guided his family business through tumult to a successful, graceful exit. So since then, he continues to define paths, agile turns, and finding growth and profits for business that in some cases had lost their compass, lost their plan. So one thing Louis and I were talking about is the timing of this is so interesting, the event itself. In January, I was working with my management clients, and the topic was, what puts us out of business? And I got to tell you, I mean, it's a wargaming mentality, right? Well, pandemic didn't show up on anybody's list, I can tell you that. So for those of you all that don't know me, I'm all about revenue generation. I work with business owners and their sales teams on the behaviors behind selling, the behaviors behind strong sales management. So most of what I focus on today will be driven by the behaviors behind the plan. So here's our agenda for today. First, we're going to talk about a war room and why that's important for our organizations to operate that way. Secondly, unlock some very specific keys that allow us to position our businesses for a rebound and avoiding a rebuild. We're going to talk specifically about revenue and relationship development for our companies and open up the floor to questions and answers. And we're happy to help you all with anything we can share. You know, one thing people talk about, you got to block out the noise. Well, how do you know what to listen to and what's actually noise? So the way that we look at it is that the only way to do that is to operate from a plan. Engage and keep engagement at all levels in the organization to focus on executing the plan, even a plan that's changing, which could be the first key. Things have changed and things will continue to change. Clearly state that, our recommendation, clearly state that from the top and demonstrate your commitment to steer this company through. I can't tell you how often I hear, and Louis, I'm not sure if you do, but there seems to be these knee-jerk responses and frustrations that can come from employees with every single change or new request. Plan to expect changes to the plan. The outcome target will not change. The path will change. Some will have bumps. Heck, we might even have some craters in there and do detours. But this is a fast track. You have the tools, you have resources, and you have the skills to execute this. So that affirming idea, I think, needs to come from the top down. You know, the plan doesn't come into your war room. It's built there. So what shows up in the war room is knowing what assets you have, what skill sets you have, where things are today, and then redeploying them and constantly evaluating gains and losses. We got to collect on the gains, learn from the losses, and keep refining the plan. So today we're going to go over a lot of ground and quickly to ideally provide support for as many of you all as possible. We know that you're at different phases in different industries. Louis and I do get to talk to a lot of different business owners and business leaders and that are in different industries and at different stages in their process here. So let's take a look at yours. Here's a thought. A change in your work environment doesn't have to change your work culture. You're testing its mettle right now, but frankly, what you do right now is who you are. And then we have one of our 4 kids has a t-shirt, and this may be our new daily meditation. And that is, this DM isn't going to carpe itself. So it's up to us, right? Okay, so if you guys are ready, fasten your seatbelts. Louis is going to get you, he's going to get into your business. But he's got a lot to cover, and I'll be back near the end around revenue generation. Louis, you ready? There you go. You're muted. You want to come in here? Let me go take a quick look. Try it. Nope, come on in. So one thing we do know how to do in this space is play some musical chairs, so.
I trust everybody can hear me now.
Sounds good.
Good, thank you. Sorry about that little technical glitch. So we're talking about the 7 battle stations that we've been working with our clients focus on. We're management and business consultants, and we are typically working with our clients on growing the value of their businesses. But in these unprecedented times, we've had to switch track a little bit and make certain that they are covering all the bases to protect their businesses. I want you to consider this a stress test on your business. As business consultants, we've seen the effects of this crisis on virtually all of our clients. A couple have been semi-immune to this. And we've really utilized this process that you're about to see to get them to focus on their priorities and identify what areas they really need to be focusing on. I focused the questions that you're going to see coming up next and followed them up by making some recommendations for you all, so that again, it's question and a recommendation, and I'll try and move through this quickly and take all of your questions after that. Employee communications. So the question, how transparent have you been about the current realities the business faces? Some of our clients were a little worried about how to communicate and what to communicate. And if there's one thing we've been telling them over and over again during this crisis is to over-communicate. Be candid with what's going on. They would rather know. They're already asking a lot of questions. Some businesses took a little too long, and they did terrify some of their folks, which leads to the next one. What have you done to support your employees and their concerns and fears? Those who reacted quickly and started allowing flexible work from home have found that because it's been going on close to a month now, they found that they're more productive than they thought they would be. They've managed to use things like Zoom and Microsoft Teams and GoToMeeting to set up what have become regular work days, where meetings continue to go on, and they have been productive, and they've utilized this as their virtual war room. I guess another question would be, how clear have you been on why furloughs and layoffs have been necessary? I'm sure many of you have had to do both, or one or the other. And the clarity behind the why it was necessary does follow the same aspects of being clear and transparent. There is no reason to not share with them the situation the business is in. A lot of the businesses that have been waiting for funds to come through have spent weeks burning up significant amount of cash in their business, and have concerned themselves with, when do we tell employees and why? Sooner than later is always the best case. How clear have you been on how you made those decisions? That was another question that came up a lot. Do we tell them why we're doing this, and why is it this department or this person or this job? The clarity, again, of why you're making these decisions is incredibly important for those people who are still around. It's not just a leadership team that needs to know. I think all employees should know why you've made the decisions you've made. How frequently are you providing updates, video updates, live or recorded? We've encouraged our business owners and leaders to communicate on a weekly basis, at the worst case, with their staff. Video updates have been valuable. They don't have to be terribly long, but they do have to be clear on what's going on, where you see things. That a lot of folks are wanting to know what's happening with our customers and what's happening with our vendors. And we found that it's, again, critical to be as transparent and visual to your employees as possible. At this point in time, I don't think there's anything more valuable than cash and cash management. If you do not run or have a 13-week cash flow, which is essentially a quarterly cash flow, you're probably going to be trying to navigate in the dark. Why is it important? Because it can show you all the different models that you need to be creating. We had clients that were, in the beginning, they saw a slow drop off, maybe 5 to 10% of their revenue in the first week or 10 days of this crisis. And what we really asked them to do was model worst case scenarios and to do it quickly. We started modeling 20, 30, 40, even 50% or more declines in revenue and what that was going to do to their cash flow. Because at this point, cash was everything to their businesses. We were working with businesses that have been around for 50, 60, 70 years that were in the process of burning up cash so quickly, it looked like they would be running out of cash in 60 days. Not fair for businesses to put themselves in that position after such a lengthy tenure, but it was because they really didn't see where all of their cash was going. In those models, we had some that were still showing that they were going to lose money. We built these models so that they would, at worst, break even. Do your models show you breaking even, or do they still show you losing money? If they continue to show you losing money, you probably haven't gone deep enough in protecting your cash. Have your receivables slowed down? And have you included that in your models? The first week or so of the crisis, most folks weren't considering that. They still saw cash coming in. But about 2 weeks ago, they did start to see their receivables slow. And that needs to be included in your model. We've seen businesses go from 45 to 50 days of outstanding receivables, and those same receivables now are going to start trending in the 75 and 80-day mark. That amount of cash, combined with the decrease in revenue, is now showing them the picture of what their business will look like in 8 weeks and 10 weeks and 12 weeks, which is so critical right now. Many of you have probably received some funding that will protect you for those 8, 10, 12 weeks. But the reality is the cash that you have on hand is as critical today as it ever has been, and understanding that through these various models is absolutely critical. Have your fixed expenses increased as a percentage of your sales? The fixed expenses in your business, some of which you can control, some of which you can't. We've seen business owners take large cuts in pay. Other leaders in the business have done the same to control some of those fixed expenses. They've cut out what they can, where those expenses were now taking over a greater part of their total revenue percentage. It's important to note because so often you will be looking at your gross margin and how that covers your overhead. As your revenue reduced, if your expenses were staying flat, then your net margins were being eroded. So your understanding of what you need to do to manage that cash as well as those fixed expenses is the most critical thing that we've been working with our customers on at this point. Expense reductions, nobody likes to talk about it, nobody likes to do it, but do your labor reductions reflect what your models suggest? Now that being, when you look at the reduction in revenue and the reduction in labor, if it still shows that you are in a losing position, draining cash from the business, we highly recommend that you look at that again and make the right reductions and right size until you can start to bring back your revenue and those pieces of labor that you've had to do without. Have you cut deep enough? Virtually all of the business owners that we were working with were struggling to go deep enough. There was an awful lot of hope There was hope that this would pass quickly, that this would be over in a couple of weeks, that our businesses would open up again April 15th, May 1st. Well, we're now hearing that in most cases, it's going to be considerably longer than that. In that same effort to protect your cash, you have to go deep enough, and you have to be able to make those very, very difficult decisions, because again, protecting the cash is critical. Have you used the reductions to evaluate your pre-COVID efficiencies? Most of our clients have started to look at that, saying, you know, this might be an opportunity for us to do things a little bit differently. We've been so busy for the last several years that we've really never taken a look at things that might be inefficient. With a reduced workforce, now we're forced to look at things differently. Not so much multitasking as much as truly evaluating whether old processes are still relevant. And are there opportunities to come back through this and out of this in a better position than you went into it? Another area to understand the reduction in expenses is your people's buying authority, and understand what a short-term spend is and what a positioning spend is and what is an unnecessary spend. Many businesses have multiple people who have access to purchases. It could be through raw materials, services. It could be through, in a manufacturing space, it could be through maintenance. When there's that many people that have access to cash, it makes it very, very difficult to understand what's being spent and where it's going. Again, highly recommend that that gets narrowed down, and that the authority to spend is really focused on, so that we understand where all of our dollars are going and not wondering where they were or we thought they would be at the end of a month. From an operational perspective, have you used this time to evaluate long-standing processes? Again, that goes back to the previous question. A lot of the businesses have just been operating on a model that they've had for years. It could be how they operated their sales organization. It could be how they operated their finance organizations, or even their manufacturing or distribution organizations, depending on what industry they were coming from. Again, we've really encouraged them to look long and hard at, is this the right time to evaluate what we believed was our norm and find more efficient ways to operate? And again, controlling expenses. Have you used this time to eliminate barriers and silos within your company? If there's ever been a time where you had areas that did not work together as well as you would have liked, now's the time. You put together a war room, you put together singular goals, and the time for buy-in is now. Eliminate those barriers. Everybody should be working together. There shouldn't be one area or department that is not looking at how they communicate and work more closely with other areas of the business. Have you evaluated how to use this time to provide employees much needed training you weren't able to provide in the past? This has become increasingly interesting for virtually all of our clients. They have always wanted to build training programs, build proper onboarding programs. So many businesses in the last couple of years have found that with a revolving door of employees, they have not even had the time to onboard them properly, thus train them properly. Now could be the time to, during this slowdown, to start training, systematically training different people in your business, different parts of your organizations, and giving them what they've needed all along and we never had time for. Consider this as an opportunity to provide the training that your employees need, which will only provide benefit for you and them as you come out of this. Your customers. Have you used this crisis to evaluate how you service your customers? We've come up with some incredibly creative ways for our clients to look at how they are servicing their customers today. We know that face-to-face is something that may be impacted for quite some time. Have you started to evaluate how you can look at providing that customer service that your customers actually were not expecting? Which leads us to the next one. You know what your customers expect. Do you know what they don't expect that could make you more valuable than ever to them? Big question. They expect, as they always have, quality, delivery, pricing. What don't they expect? Have you become an advisor to your clients? Have you shared other stories from other clients of yours and how they're coping through these difficult times? Becoming more agile, becoming more valuable is really an area that you can dive into right now. And maybe you haven't had the time in the past to do that, but this is truly an incredible opportunity. Have you established a new bar for your customers' overall experience with your company? We've been working with our clients to reach out in a more electronic format with their customers. We know we can't get in front of them. They're sending them text messages. They are providing information to them that they hadn't considered in the past. We've turned what used to be an outside sales programs into inside sales programs with teams that are built around customer excellence, customer expectations that a lot of the folks internally have never had an opportunity to voice their opinion on. And we've given them that opportunity today. And it's remarkable how they've reacted to working as a team on specific client requirements. And again, going above and beyond what our clients would expect right now. Have you evaluated how your current customers will weather the storm? What if they don't? How and where will you replace lost revenue? It's likely that some of them won't weather the storm, or they will shrink to a point where they may not be as stable as you would like them to be. But isn't this a perfect opportunity now to determine what other markets, what other client bases that you could be looking at, what other product offerings you could be looking at? Essentially strategizing today on how you can actually grow your business coming out of this and focusing on where you will replace the revenue from. A lot of this comes from contact with your customers today, understanding where they are, understanding their plight and position right now, what they've had to do with their employees, and downstream, how they're being affected by what their industry and customers are doing and experiencing. Have you evaluated fresh ideas and nimble approaches to your customers? Again, fresh ideas, getting your customers together in potentially non-competing markets, letting them learn and share. We've created webinars. We have created virtual lunch and learns with non-competitive customers so that they can learn from each other how they're dealing with the different situations. We've had our clients facilitating these conversations. We've done the same thing for them with vendors, pulling vendors from different parts of your, again, non-competing, that service you, and getting them to share how they're dealing with this new normal. And again, it's been something that our customers have started to appreciate because the approach has been, we are here for you today, we will be here for you tomorrow, and we're going to come up with fresh ideas. We're not retrenching, we're getting more creative and more nimble. Has the crisis provided an opportunity to eliminate low margin customers or fix their contribution margins? A lot of us have customers that we keep on. We complain about where what they contribute to our overall business, but we've had to keep them over the years. Is this a time to fix some of those issues? They're going to look at their business differently, and you can look at your business differently. Eliminating low margin customers at a time when, again, cash is king, you've probably never had a better opportunity. You probably also have never had a better opportunity to talk to them about their businesses and become an advisor to them on how you can actually make them more money by creating and generating different ideas, product mixes, service options. I would offer to you to consider how valuable this time could be to look at fixing these low margin accounts. Your supply chain. Have you determined how long your supply chain will take to recover? We're finding that that is going to be a moving target, as I'm sure you are. Some will rebound faster, some will not. Some will put some of their larger customers to the front of the line. How do you put yourself at the front of the line is a key question right now. We're making assumptions that it'll all come back to normal. It's going to take time for our supply chain to be fulfilled full again. Some of it may come back faster, but it still may, depending on your service or product. It may slow some of your production requirements and opportunities for you to get full again in your production and operational situations. Have you evaluated their overall health and ability to rebound? I encourage you to do that. Some of your vendors may not return. Do we wait until we find out that they don't have the ability to continue? Or do we start today looking at and contacting other potential vendors? Have you established your position at the front of the line? I asked you that a couple seconds ago. How can you do that? By communicating with your vendors today, finding out how you do that. How are you at the front end of this turnaround? Can you potentially work with them and show them where your business opportunities are that will be coming back and how that would impact their business? How the changes that you've made to your working with your customers, how they could position themselves to be part of that. Have you attempted to negotiate extended terms to protect cash? We've seen a lot of vendors being very, very open to maintaining the health of their customers, extending terms. We saw one large national vendor go from 2% 15 days to net 60 to protect their customers. If we don't ask, we don't know what they're willing to offer. Some people have had a fear of asking their vendors, thinking their vendors might consider that they would wonder if they're healthy or not as customers. I would say at this point in time, everybody is under the same concerns. So why wouldn't we ask questions and build a stronger working partnership with our vendors? They want us to be around. They need us to be around. Have you modified your levels of inventory to follow your cash flow models? Very, very important. Working with your vendors, modifying orders that were out there, and working internally. If your businesses still have a certain percentage of business, have you actually built models and worked with your organization to understand how to reduce inventory in critical areas? Many companies are offering promotions to get their inventory moving, which again will generate cash, which will be much needed 60 and 90 days from now. Thank you. So there will be a recovery. Have you modeled which resources will be brought back first, second, and third? This is so critical for you because the feeling will be it's all going to come back at one time. And I think logically we know it will not all come back at one time. How do you model in bringing the right resources back? We've talked about models and models a lot today. Using that modeling, determine how your expenses will come back and which will be required first, second, and third until you're back to a full recovery. But understanding that is critical. It's not just whoever is crying the loudest. It is based on your plan for recovery and which areas we bring back in sequence. Again, has that been included in your financial models? It really needs to be. Have you built your options should your employees have moved on to other jobs? Again, some industries will recover faster. Employees that were laid off will start to look for work. They'll likely go to work for wherever they can find their jobs first that get them back to whole. So what is your plan and strategy to be able to bring back a workforce that you may have lost? You're going to have to get creative with this. There are options. There are incentives that you can bring to bring people back onto the job. And probably keeping in touch with some of those folks that are on furlough and layoff today through internal resources and keeping them up to speed on how the business is performing might motivate them to want to come back to work for you. Have you used this time to build much needed strategies around your top customers? We've always focused our clients on working on strategies specific to their top customers, not just, well, we'd like to sell them X or Y, but true strategies on their top customers. Most of us would say the 80-20 rule applies, that 20% of our customers drive 80% of our revenue. Do we understand today what those opportunities are that we just have not capitalized on in the past, and how do we do that today? Almost like a war room plan for how do we increase revenue with our top customers as they rebound and recover from the crisis. I would encourage you to have a plan, almost as if it was a strategic plan around each of those top customers, so that you can be executing it today and in full when they do recover. Finally, have you evaluated which of your competitors may struggle in recovery? Are you poised to take on new customers? Now that's going to go back to your first, second, and third resources brought back. But do you know today which of your competitors are struggling and which ones will struggle coming out of the recovery? Those should be conversations you're having in your war room with your salespeople. They should be working on those plans today to understand what it is their opportunities are and presenting that back to the organization, the entire organization, because all aspects of the organization should and need to know what this could look like in a recovery. You'd want to know it from a cash flow standpoint, from a borrowing standpoint. You'd want to know it from an operational standpoint, hoping you have enough bandwidth to bring these folks back on. From a human resources capacity, do we have enough resources waiting in the wings to be able to capitalize on these opportunities? These will be fleeting because they will come back and be strong competitors again as well one time, but not necessarily in the months that follow. Now is an opportunity for you to help those customers of your competitors who are desperately in need of services and supplies. So with that, the term from Winston Churchill, never waste a good crisis, has never been more true today. We don't have to buckle under this. We have to buckle up, go back to what Amy referred to earlier as a war room mentality, and follow those 7 pieces, and you too can build a strong, sustainable business through the balance of this crisis. I hope this was helpful, and I'm hoping to answer all of your questions after you meet with Amy.
We thought we could get by with wearing jeans. Okay. All right. So thank you, Lewis. That was brilliant. I'm going to dig in deeper into the customer aspect, the revenue generation aspect of how you're operating your business. And so there's a mindset that we have to choose, and Lewis alluded to it in many ways. There's the 3 mindsets that will be selected. One is a mindset around shrinking, which tends to be very easy and automatic. It tends to be reactive, and it tends to play small conservatively, and it creates fear. And who all does it create fear in? It creates fear in our staff and our customers and our suppliers. There's a maintenance mindset, and that's a mode that is typically playing defense, could be underserving clients, only concerned about conserving cash, under communicating, being impatient or being inflexible, my way or the highway kind of thinking. And then there is aggressive. Before we get into that, there's this image that always comes to mind for me, and that is that scene in Titanic, not that we should be talking about sinking ships, but that scene in Titanic when the camera's down in steerage, there's starting to be some water on the floor, and what's finding its way out, right? The rats. Not that our customers are rats, but it does create a visual. Sinking ships do not typically float safely into the harbor and everyone disembark. They sink right on the spot. And it is our job to go to our customers, our prospects who could be struggling, and we have to be present to win. So if your competitors have shrunk or gone into maintenance mode, we may be able to pick up or reevaluate a whole new relationship with prospects. And that's where I want your headset to be around what it means to be aggressive. Aggressive is about operating with a plan, even challenging what we believe to be true. So as an aside, I was running a class last week and I pulled out an old presentation on strategic recovery. And the topic was actually learning to dance in the rain. And it focused on facts versus fear. One of the key questions was, what is the difference between what you know and what you believe about doing business in 2009? 2009. That was 11 years ago, and we were solving the same issue for businesses. Different cause, recession-driven, and I don't believe that this is going to have the lasting financial effects, my opinion, for nearly as long, but the message still resonates. That alone calmed my fears. We've done this. We've all built businesses. We've got this, not like a hold my beer kind of way. There is important work to be done, but we can get through this. The idea of pivoting itself is powerful. If we look at a pivot as a deliberate move made from a strong base, think about that in what your pivot foot is, right? We lean on our skills, we lean on our beliefs, we lean on our talents, we lean on our teams. We can shift direction, but from a very strong foot that's planted. It gives us strength. So Louis and I have been talking to a number of clients. We don't always work with the same business. As a matter of fact, most of the time we don't. So we get to talk to a lot of different businesses. But lately we've been helping a lot of them work through their SBA and grant submissions. We also decided that while important, those programs and economic package will not determine the fate of our companies, and we hope that you've decided that as well. In fact, many of the changes we're experiencing will stick and stay even as we emerge. So here's what an aggressive mindset looks like. As Louis talked about, over-servicing clients. Who can be involved in that? Clearly, that's a sales operation typically. I'm working with an organization right now. Every one of their field techs is reaching out to their customers. The second is determining and spending impact dollars. Look at the immediate 90-day window. Now, before I move on to the third one, realize that sometimes what we are offering our clients is their ability to overservice their clients. Sometimes what we're helping them do is figure out how to go after the impact dollars to their clients. Make sure you understand and are in their war room, helping them figure out how they can be aggressive on their customers' behalf, and you can help them get there. We may be looking at new success profiles. What's an A, B, and a C client that may shift in the middle of this? The fourth thing I want you to consider is utilizing behavior management. What are the top 10 behaviors that directly impacts your company? Dig into those. Give your folks the ability to focus and develop those skills if they don't have them. But certainly that's where the accountability is to the behaviors they should be demonstrating. Perhaps the results are going to lag. Prospect using a wider net. Reframe what success looks like. It may be the breadth of relationships right now. We may be looking at, if we're a secondary supplier and the primary supplier has constricted or is going to put this customer further back in their queue, this may be our chance to really lean forward and become their primary true relationship-driven supplier. So at the end of the day, your mindset, we have to decide. It's up to us to decide what that is. That's the good news is that is one thing we can control. So my question is, to know what you have decided is make sure you can identify. If I'm saying, I can say I'm aggressive. Well, most people would say I'm aggressive, but let's just suppose I have an aggressive mindset. But how does it show? Specifically, what are the moves you're making? If you can't isolate and articulate those things, you may have want to be aggressive, but you're not demonstrating it. The second is, are all of your leaders aligned with this path? And I mean, if I'm have an aggressive mindset, but my employees don't, they're fearful, or they've gotten into maintenance mode themselves, do I have any chance of exacting my aggressive plan? So our employees, are they aligned, including our furloughed employees? That's part of the clarity and transparency Lewis was talking about. Knowing what path your suppliers have chosen, that tells you who's going to be available as you emerge through this. What path have your customers chosen? And so ask them specifically, what moves are you all making now? Based on Lewis's questions alone, I think that would tell you the difference between being in a maintenance mode and being in an aggressive mode. Being on this call today, I believe, is an aggressive mode mindset. So let's make sure, these are some of the things our sales team, service team, heck, everyone in our organization can determine what that means. But what seat do you occupy in your customer's war room? Many of us have businesses that might be considered on the small to medium size, or many of our customers may be on the small to medium size. And if I was an HR company, they may not have a formal HR role. I can have outside resources, and they should be outside resources sitting in my war room. Who's in your supplier's war room? Should we be in our supplier's war room to make sure that they understand how aggressive we're being with our clients, and maybe even pull them through that? If we're not, if your customers or your suppliers are not operating with a war room, what do you believe how that may impact their future? That is part of what the sales team's responsibility is to dig into those conversations to see how those folks are operating and how they're planning to emerge. So when this first started, let's call it mid-March, in terms of hitting our businesses hard and fast, we quickly moved to 3 questions. Who do I need to be, right? So the 3 questions that if we focus on, what does my customer need right now? What does my customer have time to do right now? They may have time for special projects. They may have budgeted or other types of activities that now they finally have time to develop programming or get certain things done inside their facility. The third is, what is my customer having to respond to right now? And if I answer those 3 questions, I know what I need to be for my customer. The key here is to check your answers every 4 or 5 days, because I think that the answer is changing that quickly. You know, if you can build deliverable or content to be exactly what they need, then you are servicing them in a way that might be beyond what they might have expected. If their company policy prohibits them from working with you right now, see if they want to schedule on a priority list as things lift. What's their commitment to coming back to? Build the business you can return to. Don't assume that people can't buy what you do. They can't buy what you did. They might be able to spend money on what you can do for them right now. I've got a few examples I want to share with you, and hopefully you can figure out where in your business some of these creative ideas can be effective for you. I have a catering client that right now, she became a grocer because her food supplier had 30 produce trucks that had nowhere to go. And so, you know, if you want to stop a business real fast, be in the business of gathering people. So been a very effective change, and it's continuing to evolve. As a matter of fact, now they have a tip process for their drivers, and that's how they're keeping their drivers paid. We have an insurance agent that's now making outbound calls to share keys to stretching household dollars for their clients. Some of them are around products they offer. Some of them are just generally well regarded plans and tactics for household and single income earners, or whatever the case might be. What we do know is that, with all due respect, Flow from Progressive isn't making those calls. So their stance has always been having that brick and mortar relationship, walking face to face, has always been their service level. Well, now's the time for the rubber to hit the road. We have a software developer that immediately 100% of their projects that were in early stage just got put on hold. Now he's building dashboards, agile software solutions for what businesses need right now. We've got a CapEx equipment company who's selling large capital equipment. that typically takes an 8 to 12 week turnaround on those equipment purchases. So not only anything they would sell today is typically going to push cash out by 8 to 12 weeks, those sales aren't coming right now. Anything they sold in the past quarter that's now ready for installation might even have been put on hold or isn't coming into the country right now. So yet their customers are completely slammed. They sell into the print industry, and most printers are seeing a tremendous amount of volume and product that has to get out the door for better packaging. So what they're doing is they're taking all of their field demo equipment. It's probably, they have as many units in demo as they typically sell in an entire year. They're going to redeploy those and rent them short term. They've never been a rental company or a leasing company, but they're going to create a short-term rental or a short-term lease for their customers, and they're being strategic about it. Which customers were on the fence about buying this piece of equipment? Which ones are prospects that we've not been able to get into the door for? But this may be a time for them to deepen those relationships. Another example, we had a manufacturer that was asked to significantly increase production and furthermore change the way they were stacking a pallet. Again, I think that their customers were increasing the amount of inventory they were carrying. They were putting way more on a pallet and specifically asking that it be shrink wrapped with, I want to say either 3 to 5 more wraps around the product. The fact is, who else should know about this requirement? Their packaging supplying partner, which means that they should be reaching out to every other manufacturer that may be needing a change in how they're going about wrapping or how much product they have to use, their inventory levels. One last example is we're working with an HR company, and they are now teaming up, and they've created a daily pivot video, a war room for people to join in, but it's a regularly scheduled meeting, 1 hour, 2 days a week, for them to help those organizations that are dealing with rapidly changing issues of HR, staffing, rehiring, real-time solutions, and giving direction. They've never been that company, but it's open to all. So I'm so impressed with the things they're doing. One other quick example, I just happened to another shift this morning with a mobile glass company. Not only do we have every technician reaching out to customers, but what we're looking at is you can't roll a commercial vehicle with a broken windshield. But if we wait for things to lift, there's going to be such a backlog, he's not going to capture all of that volume. So right now, he is doing work and offering work to these people who are conserving cash. They admit they have issues, but he might be taking a small deposit and changing his terms so that full payment may not happen for 90 days. But it does give him a cash flow to return to. If 70% of those people survive, he will be fine. He's got to work with his supplier to make sure that we can get that product in, but he doesn't want to create a long line or a long queue that really just lines up customers for his competitor to go get. Hopefully those are some ideas you all can take a look at. So when we look at the waves of change, the things that have happened, right? I don't have a crystal ball, but I think David even discussed this early on in the conversation. And based on everybody we talked to, this is my not so scientific assessment of the past 3 to 4 weeks. So mid-March, call 11th to the 13th, there was this holy cow, get out. Who's going to work from home? And by the way, your kids are going to be there a lot, and you need to protect your toilet paper. So they moved from there. They then shifted into a getting set up. Where's IT going to come from? How do we still protect the information that's moving in and out? Figuring out how to do classwork from home for kids, all those things. And then in the past 2 weeks, many have shifted into understanding what which customers are going to be able to pay us and continue, what government programming, the wonderful things the SBA is doing, grants, and a lot of that was an on your market set, get reset again, and then finally there was a go. And so that took a lot of the resources from the war room. Sorry. The next wave we believe is going to be how people are planning to emerge. I believe that companies will begin this phase starting now and over about the next 10 days to 2 weeks max. They will design what their strategy is on how they will emerge. They won't be emerging at that time, but they will develop deep looks at what their strategies look like. We have to figure out what is our role in our customers' strategies. What are the changes they're going to keep, and what are the things they're going to need to do quickly? You know, many projects got delayed. They didn't get lost. And so those businesses that are ready to move will win. Those who set up a queue or a work queue for their and work that queue for the customers can rebound the fastest. There's a point here around fixing it now. That CapEx equipment company I was talking about, all those backed up installs, guess where their customers are going to want to be in the queue? Number one, right? Everybody's going to expect that. There's going to be a tremendous amount of strain on resources to get as much work done as quickly as possible. So now is the time for them to evaluate what are the installation and service issues they normally face in situation normal. What are the things that create a second and a third callback? What creates customer service issues? What are the bottlenecks that create, bottlenecks in operations and in the deliverable? Solve these issues now, and you can position your sales team to be able to move much more quickly. It's the real best chance for some revenue catch up in the last quarter or so. It's likely that as we emerge, companies, particularly the aggressive ones, will execute their gear change or their catch-up plan. There's going to be a great deal of pressure on resources, as I mentioned. Don't be the bottleneck in the process. Get in their war room, see what your role is in that war room, own your responsibility, because at the end of the day, that is your plan. So here's some ideas and keys to rebound in order to avoid a rebuild. Some certain sales activities. From a business standpoint, and this is arguable to some in the room, but our customers, our prospects, our strategic partners, and our network connections, frankly, are more available now. I used to say more accessible. I'm getting a whole bunch of complaints of people who aren't taking calls right now. Those roles may be vacated. So we have to move up in the organization to find out who is operating. If you're part of my war room, I have to let you in the room. If you're just calling to check and see how I'm doing, I really don't have time for you right now. So understanding who is more available right now than in situation normal. See what their adjusted plan is. Now, I'm begging, pick up the phone to have that conversation. Email boxes are just overflowing, and I always consider them the sandbox of the devil to begin with. So pick up the phone, email when necessary, but try texting them. Reach into their LinkedIn mail if you need to. But it has to be around compelling communication. I'm going to share with you in a moment some ideas around that. But it's not just a check-in. So see what their adjusted plan is and see how you can help. Not if you can help, how you can help, and how you can engage as things return to their new normal in the coming weeks and months. Build a solid following on social media right now. Plug in the solutions they need, even if right now it's not you. Important things can still be done. So build relationships that matter. Keep building those relationships. All right, so here's some communication ideas, things that have to be said. We know that our work environment doesn't dictate culture, but truly as leaders, leveraging a great video response, weekly updates, as Lewis was talking about, demonstrating confident compassion is what I believe the order of the day to be. So where that comes from allows me to put my feet back down and say, okay, I know it's awkward and clunky, but I do trust the advice I'm getting. And so that advice may be coming from you, the owner, and the salespeople are now putting that in front of your customer. So it's not just for your employees, it's also to reassure your customers what is happening. You know, if you have a sales process, use it. Now is not the time to shrink from it or abandon it. Your methods or skills should slide into the current environment, frankly, with ease. The language might adjust, the compelling reason for them to buy or change might be different, but the skills, the approach, the interview, measuring, gaining commitment to change are skills that adapt. Now, I got to tell you, those salespeople who have always said that I feel that they feel that they're better face to face and always race to setting an appointment, they're screwed right now. So what I'm hoping is that you all understand how to have that meaningful conversation or help your salespeople develop that right now. They may not know how to operate in this environment. I'd rather you all adjust terms than pricing. If pricing is adjusted, gain ground into another project or a consideration for that change. Make sure you're capturing the costs and losses of what you're solving for your customer, and you won't be asked to adjust your pricing. And we can help you with that if you need some help on what that means, how to capture those things. Eliminate weak or diminishing language. And this may sound like an aside. It is absolutely what will set the mindset for your customers. There isn't a try, there isn't a just, there isn't probably or might. I need you to solve things. So don't say, I'll try to get that to you by ... or I'll try to call you on Friday. I will get that to you on, or I will call you on Friday at such and such time. Watch for that weak language moving in because people are in unsure times. Don't add to that lack of surety. Taking the word just out, it's a diminishing word. I just thought I would touch base. I don't have time to touch base, but I do have time to get things done. If you can do that for me, I'm ready to have a conversation. So just seeing if you got the information you requested, as opposed to, were you able to make a decision on what I sent you, or do you need more information? It's a shift in how we're getting things done. Offer an agenda and clarify what needs to be accomplished in each call or each meeting ahead of time. It helps people stay on target. Frankly, these skills should be there regardless of our time frame. Here are some examples, and I've got them in quotes. So imagine that this is a conversation I'd love to know that you and your salespeople are having with your customers. I was just talking to a number of other business owners, or whatever that fill in the blank is there. I was just talking with blank. I'm now hearing X, Y, and Z. How have you been able to adjust to that? Share with them the issues that you know you're overcoming for your clients today. Ask other prospects how they're adjusting to that. That's an engaging conversation. You won't see a lot of close-ended questions out of me. No is, no do, no can, no will. How have you been adjusting to that? We'll start a conversation. We don't want outbound phone calls to devolve into wanting to chat or catch up or see how you're holding up. No close-ended questions. Can I do anything? Thanks, but no thanks. How have you been adjusting to whatever that particular situation is? Here's an example. We recognize we have resources many of our clients don't have, so I'm reaching out to you to share ... Articulate what that is, but we recognize we have resources many of our clients don't. Okay, well, what are those? Our salespeople should be perhaps picking up the phone and saying, I'm personally inviting you to an online conference or workroom or whatever you want to call it, right? I am personally inviting you to an online this to solve this problem. Is that something you've already solved? Now that is a closed-ended question, but it's very direct. And that what they're solving may be cash flow issues, solving what it's going to mean to emerge in a successful stance. Is that something you've already solved? I'm betting the answer is no. This one may seem a bit wordy. Imagine it as a conversation. So even if you have to close your eyes and imagine you're on the other end of a phone call from a salesperson. You know, many of the owners I've been talking with feel like they initially got forced into survival mode, and then they shifted into financial strategies, loans, and programs. And now they're focused on strategies to be effective so they can emerge and leapfrog into projects, actually taking this time to grow talents and readiness. What stage do you feel you guys are in right now? That's a conversation starting entry that salespeople, in a compassionate, confident way, should be able to create those direct conversations. Heck, I'm okay if your salesperson asks, what's the next hill you have to climb? That's going to talk about where they are, how their war room is operating. Now, I do believe we should all control ourselves. I can control my behaviors. I can't control anybody else's. I get that. But all meetings, all appointments, they have to end with the next action scheduled. If we thought it was tough to get a hold of them for this phone call, imagine what the follow-up is going to be like. So be very clear in the expectations and the measurement of what that next action is going to be. So when I call you, David, what do you want me to do if I get your voicemail? They're going to get some clear direction on that. And even if they say, just call me back, I can lean in with some examples. Well, if for some reason I don't catch you at 2 o'clock, I'll keep trying you about every 5 minutes since this is actually an appointment. Is that okay with you? If something changes, would you be kind enough to call my cell or text me? That's controlling the activities. With everything else you have going on, is there any reason you won't be able to get that information to me by Monday? Would it make sense to go ahead and schedule this with a video call for 2 o'clock on Tuesday? I'll send you the link as soon as we get off the call. That exact is how I would expect your salespeople to perform. So we're open for questions. Lewis, if you want to pull around here. Frankly, when you ask questions here, you're really teaching everybody else on the call. So we appreciate any feedback and questions you might have. Hopefully you're asking people what they got out of meetings with you. And we will make sure you've got our contact info here. You see our cell numbers, use them, our emails, use them, connect to us on LinkedIn. We'd love to help. If you get something valuable today, heck, we'd even love a recommendation on LinkedIn. Tough times make for tough decisions. You don't have to do this in a vacuum. So tell us how we can help.
So I've got a question here. I guess it's for Lewis. So you're kind of a turnaround expert, and so evidently, I guess we could say that every company in the United States is now in turnaround mode, and you've gone through a bunch of different processes and ideas here. Is there kind of like a checklist that you can tick down, like do this first, do this second? Kind of paraphrasing a long question here, but what would you recommend to somebody? Where do you start, and what's the next thing, and what's the next thing, and what's the next thing?
Right. Yeah. Yes, there is the quick answer. It does start with where you thought you were going to be at this point in time. So for those of you who've created budgets on an annual basis, and you do the reality check of where you are today, I can provide you all with a list of action steps that we would recommend you take after you capture where you are today.
Okay. So Bruce wants to know if he says you mentioned there was kind of 3 types of expenses. Can you go over that again? Yeah.
I think that while Lewis is looking that piece up, it might have been those that are a short-term spend, those that are really a positioning spend. So short-term is what do we just have to spend some money on right now. The positioning spend is where we're still looking at money spent as an investment, because I don't want equipment to fail because somebody told me I couldn't spend money around here. And all of a sudden we end up with a crisis going forward or break, something. And then there is the money we really don't have to spend right now. That could have been it, unless, Lewis, there's more to that.
That's the way I would have answered it, Dave. I think Amy captured that, unless there was something else specifically that they were looking for some recommendations around.
And each department head or manager should be able to demonstrate what they believe to be, this is a short-term spend, we got to have it. This positions us, and if they don't have their business case for how the cash is going to position them to be stronger to emerge, my opinion is the person that sold them whatever that is didn't do a good job. But certainly that is where business owners should be looking to every member of their team as an advisor right now.
Further to that, again, whatever that 13-week cash flow is showing you, you will know based on what is an absolute must spend. You don't want to go into negative cash positions. You definitely don't want to start losing money if you can avoid it, because that's pure cash at that point, because most everybody has tapped out their lines of credit.
Louis, speaking of cash flow, do you have any tips on forecasting your cash flow?
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Speaking of cash flow, do you have any tips for forecasting your cash flow?
I do. I'd actually be happy again to provide something to you all that you can forward out after this. A directional way of looking at your cash flow with all of the questions you need to be asking. It's almost a how to build it. And of course, you all are experts at this as well, and you can validate whether or not there's things in there that are relevant for your folks. But yes, I can send all of that off to you right after this call.
Okay. So I personally have a question and like your all's opinion on this. So when you're looking at expense reductions and you kind of mentioned about positioning expenses, how do you guys feel about looking at your marketing department? Is that an expense to be cut, or should you really double down and invest in marketing, especially if in a time like this?
It's a great question. That would not be one of the areas that I would want to be taking apart at this point. We're trying to utilize all of the resources that we have available to us, and reaching our customers today through whatever marketing efforts we have ongoing. It's more critical today than it was. We have to be more aggressive getting to our customers and communicating with our customers than we have ever done in the past. We've seen customer service teams in the last 3 weeks go from being inbound to being almost 100% outbound. We've built and prepared scripts for them to actually, not to Amy's point, not just to check in and see how you're doing, but to check in with opportunities that they can provide to help their clients through these times. So we've turned it around where they're more aggressive than they ever were, as opposed to more passive than they ever were.
And if I can add to that, and not with the same messaging clearly, right, David? It's got to be based on what we know our customers need from us right now. It may be different venues of where they were spending marketing dollars. We do believe a lot of this is hand-to-hand combat, and it does take us making very specific outbound activities, supporting that with information and data, but certainly keeping our name out in front of other people also helps to provide that level of confidence and compassion that we understand what you're going through. Here's how we're going to handle it, and we're here for you.
All right. Tony, you got anything?
Yes, I have a question here from Cynthia Bond. She wants to know if you two have any strategies for distilleries, breweries, and wineries who have their on-site sales closed. Well, they are an essential business, right? So are they having relationships? And I don't know all the ABC, alcohol and beverage and control requirements, but are they allowed to have different types of conversations with liquor stores who are delivering, with caterers who can deliver alcoholic beverages? That was one of the reasons our caterer became a grocer, is because they could also deliver adult beverage with their prepared foods that aren't necessarily packaged for grocery. So that was a quick move. That may be the case. It may even be where they could develop relationships with some organizations where they may choose to gift their customers with adult beverage or whatever the case would be, obviously staying within the rules and guidelines of what you're allowed to sell and through what channels. Conversations with distributors to see what their strategies are, to make sure how they're going to position your product. Right now for distilleries and so forth, you all have got a huge PR opportunity because so many of you all have converted into hand sanitizer production and so forth. That's a tremendous opportunity for PR and marketing, to David's point. That's my opinion.
And the loss of revenue obviously has got to be just horrendous for folks like that are in the hospitality, if you will. I agree with Amy. I would actually be preparing to reach those customers that you want to reach when this does open up again. I think there's certain realities. Some businesses just are not open to the public, and yours is one of them. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't be preparing today to bring people back as fast as humanly possible when things are opened up.
And to one more point there, I think that local wins more than ever. We've always had a buy local
100%.
mentality, but local banks are outperforming some of their big elephantine competitors. The ability to support our essential workers and people that would maybe not even have been regarded very heavily in the past. There's going to be so much appreciation for what local businesses have done, where they've chipped in. I think you're in a great position to make sure that people understand that you're local and what you've been doing to support the local economy and providing jobs, protecting as many jobs as you can.
Great advice, you all. Gina Nobles wants to tell you all that you all's advice has been great, and it's great for currently operating businesses. She just wants to know if there's anything different that you would recommend to businesses that are planning to open after this crisis.
So she's got it all the way up to the finish line here, and then this happened.
Wow. I guess I would, because now the opportunity to really evaluate any thoughts on redundancies, really understanding a lot of new businesses struggle with the concept of financial management, which is why they need good, strong advisors from the outside to help them with that. Your business model, your financial model, they should always be evaluated, especially in the early stages of this recovery. But you get to put the right principles and practices in place so you don't have to try and undo bad habits. So I would just highly recommend that use this time to make certain that you have checked off all the boxes, that you are financially responsible and fiscally responsible, and you understand the peaks and valleys that your business could entertain. And if you're working off lines of credit, try and make your businesses operate on a cash flow model as opposed to utilizing debt as the only way to grow your businesses.
Also, Dr. Nobles, I would advise you to look at who your supplier partners are and where they may be able to collaborate with you right now in some of your marketing efforts, and where you might be able to co-brand or at least collaborate in that piece. I would also recommend that you heavily focus in those strategic partners. And if it's the business I believe you're talking about, those could be animal care societies, veterinarians, and other people that can absolutely position you as a strategic partner to them, and how to help them with their customers coming back. So everyone is looking to advise their customer. Maybe you're the advice that these docs can provide their customers.
So, hey, I got a question here from Wade Wilson. You mentioned about competitor failure. He says, is looking at competitor failure a good strategy at this time? And what would you recommend the first steps to take advantage of that?
You want that one? All right. Yeah. Okay. It is an important consideration, and it's purely a mindset. Most businesses don't go out of business at zero. They go out of business when they can no longer be sustainable. And so by reaching out and better understanding what your customers, what your prospects are experiencing right now, you're likely to hear which of their suppliers are leaning in and doing a great job for them, and which ones are missing the boat. And that's why I'm talking to you. So if you're in that second or third slot, now's the time to consider where they're going to be when their supplier opens back up, and offer yourself to whether it's for a temporary period or for an extended period. We want you to know you are a priority for us. There was an example a couple of years ago, and I want to say it was the American Peanut Company.
They had the most of the market share by far. They screwed up, killed some people with their product, and so they went out of business like that. So who do you think picked up all that ground? Number 2, who was pretty comfortable sliding in behind them all those years, or the scrappies number 3, 4, and 5 that have been trying to go get market share, like, take whatever drops they could get. They actually already had an outbound effort to go get that business, and they picked up a whole lot of ground. We hate to see businesses go out of business, but at the end of the day, we have to serve our clients. And if we can't help our customers increase their revenue or lower their cost to operate, they have no reason to buy from us. And that's the position of the conversation. I hope that helped.
Well, I'd like to add to that too. You've heard the old adage that when they ask somebody about how their business performed and how did you go out of business, and they said, it happened over time and then suddenly. There are businesses that are not going to survive this because they weren't prepared for it. But if you think about it, there's already somebody buying what we make or service. So anytime we ask our salespeople to prospect for business, they're prospecting for new business. So I would just look at if there are competitors that are going to struggle coming out of this. Our responsibility is to continue to grow our businesses, and working together with our groups and teams of people, we would want to find new business anyways. And I think it's going to be incumbent upon us as good, strong leaders to encourage our people to look for businesses that are going to need us, because we will be the strong that survive this. So we're not doing anything different than we would have done if we were an aggressive sales organization within our company. Because again, the only way we're going to grow is by growing our existing base or finding new business. And this time it's going to happen because some of the competitors will just not be as strong, or they may select to refocus their businesses. Maybe they've downsized them and they don't have the bandwidth to cover all of the clients that they currently have.
And if I may add to that, as owners and leaders, we have to check in on our salespeople to see what their mindset is. Because if your salespeople feel like they're going to call up and ask somebody to spend money with them right now, they're not going to pick up the daggone phone. But if they truly understand that they are picking up the phone to see how they can help their customers survive this, realign themselves the way they need to, be as reactive or proactive as they need to be with their customers. If we are helping them figure out how to lower their cost to run their business at this time, we're an essential conversation. You got to check your salespeople's headspace to make sure that that's where they believe they're operating. Yeah.
Okay. Tony?
Yes, I have a couple of questions from the audience. The first one is from Juliet Robertson. She wants to know if you have advice for service providing businesses versus those that sell tangibles. And then additionally, these service providing businesses are under the state mandate closure. And so they can't provide the service away from the physical facility that's closed.
So I'm working with a few businesses that are like that right now, and depending on the type of service, some services, if it's wellness or mental toughness, which is absolutely at the top of the peak right now, those things that they can actually go to some online and maybe even put out a tip jar to get some funding. There's so many free choices, but there are a lot of people that are still getting some money because depending on the service, if it's more where they have to be a hands-on service, hairstylists and so forth, gosh forbid you're the first guy that shows up with a haircut because everybody's going to ask where you got it. For those folks, now might be the time to position the products that are available on their shelves or lean into their customers to see, give them some step-by-step on how to do some basic care. Other types of services that are not considered essential, I don't know what else those might be off the top of my head, but I think it's around leaning into your customers, seeing what they actually need right now, and maybe being a conduit for their partners in business. One last thought is that it might be that there are assets available, whether you have trucks that are available or whatever, that might be able to be leased into other businesses that are considered essential, that might create some cash flow, as long as it stays within any kind of covenants you have on those things.
Sorry, you all. The pet care business, Juliet does.
I'm not quite sure what you said. I'm sorry.
We can't hear you, Tony.
You can't hear me. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Pet boarding care business is what Juliet, she said she has. Do you have any idea?
Yeah, pet boarding might be, as far as to generate revenue, there might be some times here where they can offer some pre-sale services, like for a discounted rate or whatever rate. Some people are willing to buy gift certificates right now that they'll use later in the season. We might be able to look at whether in that pet boarding, if you've got IAMS or somebody else on as a collaborating sponsor, to figure out what they're doing to help suppliers operate, or at least get messaging out there. And maybe you're doing some 2 and 3 minute videos to build a base of people that know who you are as you emerge. And it could be, show me a picture of your dog doing something goofy with your kid. Or it could be ideas on how to keep your animals mentally strong during this, because they're dealing with it too. It could be things along those lines. To generate revenue is going to be tough. I get it.
Thank you. One last question. Chris E. got a moving storage industry company, and he wants to know if you have any suggestions for positioning himself or to capitalize on the inevitable capacity issues that will be present when the economy starts back up.
If you could repeat what his business type was. I think I heard everything else.
Moving and storage.
Moving and storage. So one of the things that I'm talking to a client about right now, so that is starting to share with people what it's going to mean and where those bottlenecks are going to happen. So to be talking to whether it's realtors, commercial realtors, facility managers, where those projects are starting to stage up, is that if they can go ahead and put certain things in storage, even if the cash isn't available to pay them, that they could at least make some kind of a deposit which formalizes the agreement and declares that that debt is owed. They might be able to get some of the work off of the plate sooner than later. Just realize that you're going to bank some of it, realizing that if you probably hit at least 70% of those payments being made, you're going to be okay, staying in that break-even mode, but not losing folks to that. It could be, I had a client the other day that does home organizing, and she partnered with a major supplier, and they did a video conference. She had 34,000 people online for her small business because she was offering professional advice for people that can't use her right now.
Excellent advice.
One other piece is starting to position those hands and legs that are going to be able to lift and move things quickly, position trucks that might become available so that they can start to stage things. They might even, depending on warehouse space, be looking at some temporary storage facilities, because people might actually have that available to them for a while as they're rebuilding and need the revenue. Now we're just making stuff up. Go ahead.
All right.
So,
Well, it looks like we're kind of at the end of our time here, so we can kind of wrap it up. Do you have one more question, Tony, you want to try to get in?
no, I was going to actually hand it over to you, David. So,
Oh, okay. And I jumped the gun. Sorry about that.
Our phone numbers, David, our phone numbers, we are serious about taking calls from people. The more businesses that survive this and are healthy, the better for all of us. We are not taking that lightly. My phone is always going to be better than my email, but I'm open to helping any way I can.
Okay. Well, thank you too. I always learn so much when I talk to you, Amy and Lewis. It's been great as always. And this is really a tough time, but this is something that really people need to think through. And anything you want us to share with everybody else, we'll certainly do that. And again, I really thank you guys a lot for being here with us today.
Not at all. David, as a follow-up, I have a couple of notes here that I'm going to send to you. If you want to send it out and include it with the presentation, I'm happy to have you share it.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much.
No problem.
All right. Well, thank you. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Stay safe.
Stay safe.